This episode of Horror Movie Talk brought to you by Gary Busey.
What do you want me to do?
Stand up.
Okay, then what the...
Stand up!
All right!
Stand up! Stand up and face me!
Okay.
Put your knife up.
Okay. Now what do you
Use your
showing
knife
me?
to defend yourself. Come on!
I don't know how to use a knife.
Quick, yeah.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to drop it on the ground because that's normally what I would do. All right. Okay. You got the knife again. No way. You have a knife. I'm not going to let you hit me with the knife. Are you crazy?
Come on.
No.
Come on.
Come on. No way.
Come on.
No.
Adam.
No.
Come on, Adam. Stop it. Stop it. Just stop it.
So what do I do?
God, you're sick. You're sick.
Why?
You won't trust and believe in me.
I do believe in
That's
you.
why. You have failed this miserable encounter with fear.
Uh-huh.
You're still very afraid.
All right. So what do we do now?
Do you have to take a dump anywhere?
No.
Hello and welcome to Horror Movie Talk.
An opinionated and accidentally funny horror movie review show. Go.
Stroll through the scraggly woods.
He had no face.
Horror!
Sabrina, don't just stare at it, eat it.
New theatrical releases always get priority.
But we also review older horror movies, both good and horrible.
Wow, that didn't sound good.
Hello and welcome to Horror Movie Talk. Your panel of expert hosts each week are me, Dr. Bryce Hanson. I hold a PhD in spookology, and Professor David Day sits across from me. He's the foremost expert in scare no-nos.
Pick up the knife, Bryce. Pick it up. Do you have to take a dump anywhere?
No.
No.
New theatrical releases always get priority, but we also review older horror movies, both good and horrible. Or
Horror!
This one might be more in the latter of that.
Yeah, horror.
I don't know. Maybe.
It's horrible.
We got a great show today. Matching our regular December theme. Mm-hmm. We're doing holiday themed things. This is kind of a stretch, but it works. I think it's within the same theme. The Gingerdead Man.
It pains me to continue to have to say this. He's like, what are we watching tonight? The Gingerdead Man. I'm sorry, what? The Gingerbread Man? No.
No, the Ginger... I told my wife what I was watching. She's like, what are you watching tonight? The Gingerdead Man? She's like, the Gingerdead Man?
Yes. You heard me, wench.
Because she was thinking like it was like a zombie movie about someone that had red hair.
Oh, yeah.
Because I put the emphasis on dead.
Uh-huh.
Instead of Gingerdead Man.
Right. Gingerdead Man.
Yeah. So before we get into the episode too far, we want to talk about our awesome community around Horror Movie Talk. You would really love to talk with each other. If you go to our Facebook group, there you'll find most of the conversation. But we're on all the social media things, and we're happy to respond to any questions or comments you have.
We take all comers.
You'll find links to all of our social media on our website, horrormovietalk.com. It's just the name of the podcast, and then add.com at the end of it. Easy peasy. We do regular second Saturday watch parties, which I realize is today. Oh! And I don't think I'll be able to do it.
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay. I'm actually singing tonight.
Okay.
So I've got other things to do.
Shut the fuck up.
Got other various and sundry things. David does Twitch for horror games. Again, find links to that on the website. We post new episodes every Wednesday. If you want to reach out to us and ask us a question and possibly be featured on a future episode, call 682-253-4468. If you're new to the show, the way we go about things is we give a brief synopsis and review for the movie. We score on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being a miserable dredge, where it makes you angry you had to watch it. Well, in our case, had to.
Yeah, you don't have to watch anything. But
5 being an average film that hits all the expected marks, like reaches the table stakes of movie, and 10 being so good it transcends genre boundaries. After we give our score, we're breaking the format a little bit on this episode because we have a very, very, very special treat on this episode.
My God.
We will be interviewing the legend, Charles Band.
The king of exploitation. Yeah. Right up there next to the emperor of exploitation, Roger Corman.
Yeah. He's the director of Gingerdead Man, so it's part of the reason why we chose this one. But more importantly, he's the owner and proprietor of Full Moon Entertainment.
Yeah, this is the guy who came up with Puppet Master, Ghoulies. I mean, Charles Band has
a long and varied history, and he just came out with a memoir that was actually a really compelling read. It was really, really, really interesting, and we're going to be talking to him about that. So after we do that, we'll get into spoilers and take a deeper dive into Gingerdead Man and talk about what we liked and hated about the film. And then we'll end the episode. So, again,
you know what? Actually, I'm going to add to that. I'm going to add just a little bit called Things My Dad Says in tribute to Gary Busey, because as we were watching Gingerdead Man, or more specifically the 3 minutes that Gary Busey was in Gingerdead Man, Carrie was like, "Oh my God, your dad is Gary Busey." And I was like, yeah, it kind of is. So we'll read a few excerpts from things that prove that.
All right. So again, this episode we watched The Gingerdead Man, and it was about as coherent as Gary Busey. Here is the trailer.
In a quiet bakery, one woman is about to confront her past.
We've got to fight back.
An unforgivable act of violence.
It also says here that after they fried him in the chair, they cremated him and sent his ashes to his mother in Coonsboro.
Something else was just left at the back porch, too.
Must be that gingerbread seasoning.
Oh, heck.
An unholy curse.
What is that fucker anyway?
I think I know who it is.
It's me, Roger! Why'd you come and get me?
A new kind of cookie.
The hell is that? Well, it sure ain't the Pillsbury fucking Doughboy.
Who are you? Ah!
As fast as you can. Something's in the oven. The Gingerdead Man. Evil never tasted so good.
Eat me, you punk bitch!
So, reading the memoir, like, you learn that...
What's the name of that book?
The memoir is called Confessions of a Puppet Master, and then a subtitle.
Yes.
But reading the book, you find out, like, the process is you make a poster and a title, and that's where you start.
Yeah, that's where you start. And then so, you pitch it, you get it lit, and then you make the movie. You write it.
Right. You get the imagery, and that also, like, falls into the world of, like, this will look good in a trailer, too, because it's...
Right.
Like, the trailer is much more interesting than
And
the
let's
movie.
be clear, this is exploitational movies. And for those of you who aren't familiar with specifically what that means, exploitational movies are simply movies made to exploit a trend or hot topic of the time.
Right.
Right? So it's not necessarily to exploit the people in the movie or anything like that. It's just a money grab sort of thing.
Right.
It's in always, a movie form.
Yeah. I think the context of this one is not even like something. So, like, for example, like a exploitation movie would be like Jurassic Park just came out, and then you go to Hollywood Video, and there's a new video on the shelf that looks almost exactly like Jurassic Park, but it's called Carnosaur.
It's called Velocipaster.
Yeah. And so it's like half of it is tricking rubes into thinking that it's Jurassic Park.
Right.
And the other half is like, well, I like Jurassic Park. Maybe I'll like this.
Right.
But you should know, if you've been fooled by any of these, that this is not going to be a high-quality Hollywood film. And I think the context of Gingerdead Man is even worse than that. I think there was another exploitation film called Jack Frost that did really good in video stores, and I think they just like went, oh yeah, snowmen, let's do a Gingerbread Man.
Right. Yeah.
Got man right there. So yeah, I think well, first of all, Gingerdead Man can be found for rent or purchase on Amazon, and is also available streaming at Full Moon Features as part of their streaming service.
I watched it free on Tubi.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why didn't I do that?
I don't know. You're stupid.
I'm an idiot.
Yeah, you got to use that Just Watch app.
I think the best person to explain the Gingerdead Man is the director himself, Charles Band. Here's him describing or giving us a synopsis of Gingerdead Man.
You know, if you've seen the Gingerdead Man, you know that Gary Busey has a very short part. He breaks into a diner. He's the bad guy. He kills someone, and then he gets caught, and he gets sent to the electric chair, and the young hot chick in the bakery sends him to, his death, testifies. This is all backstory. It turns out that Gary Busey's character's mom was kind of a witchy chick, and she takes the ashes, brings them back to the bakery, puts them in the gingerbread batter, and out comes a really pissed off cookie with the voice of Gary Busey. That's the setup, right?
Right.
Is that the setup, Bryce?
Well, I guess that's close enough. In the spoiler section, I think we'll be talking about how wrong that actually is.
It didn't turn out to be accurate.
I mean, I think the most important thing is that was the intention.
Yes. I think, and I mean, that was 20 years ago, almost. It was 16 years ago that this movie was made.
Right.
And Charles Band has since made probably 100 movies.
Right. Yeah.
So no one can fault him for not necessarily recollecting all the nitty-gritty details of the motherfucking Gingerdead Man.
Right.
Because now he's on to like part 5 of the Ginger Weed Man.
Yeah.
And I'm not joking.
Yeah.
He's on to like part 5 of the Ginger Weed Man. He's had like Gingerdead Man versus Puppet Man, like
Gingerdead Man versus Evil Bong.
Yeah. I mean, it's.
So, that's kind of what we're working with here. So the Gingerdead Man is representative of the highs and lows of exploitation horror films. If you've seen any Full Moon feature, your expectations should be tempered. If you live in a time where you went to video stores and you rented the straight-to-video schlock, like, you should know what you're getting into when you watch this movie. If you're new to super low-budget, straight-to-video horror films like this one, you might feel surprised at how shitty it is.
Rest assured, that's a feature.
Yeah. If you are comparing it to anything that even, like, has a whiff of theatrical release, like, this movie is not going to compete on quality of writing, production, acting, directing, special effects, or anything related to the making of movies. However, what this movie and other Full Moon features have is every once in a while they have some truly entertaining, absurd, and even charming moments.
Yes, it's a special niche, which is YouTube before YouTube existed.
Right.
It's like we want to entertain people. We don't have a lot of money, but we have some wacky ideas, and we got and we have the means to get it out there.
Right.
We have distribution. So the result is a lot of whiffs, whiff, and then sometimes you'll get just pure cinematic cult glorious gold, like Ghoulies, like Puppet Master, like Jack Frost. Sometimes Basket Case. Sometimes you'll get these movies that just explode into the world with their own like bizarreness.
Right. Okay, so let's start out by discussing the bad first. The writing and direction is borderline incomprehensible. Some of the very important plot points that seem like table stakes to show on camera are just not there. It's never quite explained that the killer's mother exists other than being mentioned and seeing a witchy figure running away. We know that the mysterious figure dropped off gingerbread seasoning, and we see that. I love this. I rewatched this because I couldn't remember them ever actually pouring that box into the batter.
I do.
But we do see him pouring it in.
Yeah.
But inexplicably, they're pouring the delivery of gingerbread seasoning into a giant vat that's labeled gingerbread seasoning.
Oh, okay. Well, shut up. Hey.
And in the process, bleed into it.
Ew.
So,
David.
By the ominous music, we're to understand that this is bad.
Ew.
So, first of all, this displays a fundamental misunderstanding of how gingerbread dough is made.
Well, look, if we're going to nitpick at this level, we're never going to get through this review.
Well, I mean, is it nitpicking? Like, didn't that draw you out?
That's not what I said. I said if we're going to nitpick at this level, we'll never get through the review.
That's true.
Nothing in this movie makes sense.
Right.
At all.
Exactly.
And it's not supposed to.
Okay. But it also begs the question, what if the guy didn't accidentally and recklessly bleed into the dough?
Who cares? It doesn't.
It's that age-old like problem of like, how do we make magic happen? And it's like, okay, well, 99% of the time a lightning bolt hits it.
Right.
Electricity. It's magical.
Yeah.
No one knows what that shit does.
Friday the 13th, part 6. Or 7, maybe.
So
7.
lightning, or next up is blood. Someone bleeds into it.
Yeah.
Or mysterious scientific liquid falls onto it.
Yeah. Come into it.
And then radioactiveness.
Right. Radioactivity. That's a big one.
So you got to pick one of them. They chose blood.
Right. That was the easiest one to do,
I guess. But
they had some cool lightning effects in this movie.
I'd still think I would posit that lightning or radioactivity or something would do better than blood because
you don't want to rip off Child's Play directly. You can't.
Well, that was a voodoo ceremony.
Well, it was a voodoo ceremony that resulted in lightning.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you're going to rip off something, might as well rip off the stuff that works.
Holy shit. Child's Play is so good.
If you're in a bakery, shouldn't that be a thing that you notice when someone's bleeding profusely into your batter? I don't know. It's just I'm getting pretty nitpicky. Yeah. So the answer is shut up.
Yeah.
Do you want to see a Gingerdead Man or not?
Yeah. Do you want it? Gary Busey's here.
The acting quality varies wildly among the cast, which makes sense when you're only paying scale. There are some standouts, like Ryan Locke as Amos, had some genuinely good delivery and timing on his lines, and we're talking about like not with much to work with. It's like those jokes that are. You ever see like a movie where it features the main character as a stand-up comedian, and every single joke is like it falls flat because they haven't worked it out as a stand-up comedian for like 3 years. But in the audience, everyone's laughing hysterically.
Ha 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 ha! And it just pulls you out immediately because it's so disconnected from what reality would be.
So those are the type of like comedy lines we're talking about. This is not like high tier stuff. Anyways, he does great. Also, Larry Cedar as the Nemesis restaurateur. And, of course...
Jimmy Dean as Jimmy Dean.
And, of course, Gary Busey hamming it up. It's weird. When you watch movies like this, you see, like, the people that are just starting out and not going to make it. They're just like, oh, honey.
Yeah.
Oh, honey. And then you want to take them aside and just say, like, this is not, maybe you should be a production assistant.
Right.
You know? And then there's the other ones that stand out like, oh, like they seem very natural. Like they feel like an actor, you know, that you would see on something, you know. And we're not talking like, you know, Meryl Streep level. We're talking about like CSI Miami level.
Right. I mean, yeah, Larry Cedar went on, I mean, has done plenty before and after, you know. He did Deadwood. He's been in Community. He did Law and Order, American Horror Story. Like,
yeah, he was.
You guys got credits.
He was Pierce's father in Community, which is basically like a ripoff of Colonel Sanders. He was like this old Southern gentleman, and his hair was made out of ivory.
What?
Like, literally carved from ivory.
Oh,
yeah,
Jesus!
He did. It was a great character. Anyways, so unfortunately, the film mostly dwells on the lead actress Robin Sidney, whose only direction was probably be mopey.
Yeah, you're hot. Be sad.
It's one of those things where it's like, oh, this is how actors that don't like be natural. It's like, well, I'll just say it in everything in the same cadence.
Charles Band treats objects like people, man.
Now on to the good. So Gary Busey is great as the unhinged killer in that diner and as the voice of Gingerdead Man.
So there was a real roller coaster of emotions going on in our house the night that I laid this fact down on Carrie. Carrie's like, so what are we watching tonight? With hope and desire in her eyes.
You only see the glimmer in her eyes and then watch it slowly fade out.
And I was like, we're going to watch The Gingerdead Man. And she was like, oh, what? No. And then I was like, it stars Gary Busey. And she's like, oh. And then we watched the first 3 minutes of it, and she was like, oh my God, this is going to be the best night of my life. He's so crazy. And then you just got to watch her entire soul just get sucked out through her asshole as she realized Gary Busey was no longer in this movie. And despite the runtime of 70 minutes, it felt like 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then at about the 35-minute mark, she fell asleep. So it was a real roller coaster.
The other important thing is any time the Gingerdead Man is on screen is gold.
Pure gold.
Like genuinely enjoyably absurd. There's something about an evil, gross, super fake-looking foam latex puppet delivering menacing dialogue that is really entertaining.
You ever had lady fingers, bitch? You know, just got to throw in bitch at the end of it. Yeah.
Nice tits, bitch.
And I mean, look, this brings back memories with my friends of a Saturday night. You're going to Hollywood Video. You're going to Blockbuster with your friends. You got that one friend who's just a little unhinged, and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna get the Gingerdead Man," and you're like, "Dude, no!" And you're like, you got 3 movies. You're gonna sit down and watch at least 3 movies. Mm-hmm. You do, and this is the last one you watch, and you all fall asleep watching it, and one of you is staying awake, being like,
Yeah. So I mean, it's really entertaining. Just imagine if Triumph the Insult Comic Dog starred in a slasher. That's about what you're working with here.
True.
I mean, this is not the first time we've done a movie like this before. I think the most comparable is, of course, Thanksgiving.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it was immediately where my mind went to. This is exploitational.
And I think Thanksgiving, I could even say, is lower budget than this. But more comprehensible.
Oh, yes. I would watch Thanksgiving over Gingerdead Man.
So anyways, overall, if you are looking for a low-budget film to watch with friends to make fun of, this movie can be really enjoyable to experience. In all other scenarios, not so much. You got to be a very special person to enjoy this type of movie alone.
There is a tremendous amount of filler in this. This is mostly filler.
Yeah, like you said, like this concept would be great for the YouTube, content mill.
Yeah.
If it was 20 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so when it comes to scoring these movies, it's hard to, because what are you comparing it to?
Right.
Like, this is up against The Exorcist now because we're using the same scale.
Right.
But I still don't think it's bottom of the barrel. I don't say it's 1. I say it's 2.
Okay.
2 out of 10.
That's fair enough. I think, and you raise a good question, which is, what do you do with this kind of thing? How do you review it? And in his book, fabulous book. I really enjoyed the read. Anybody who's listening to the sound of my voice, if you'd like horror movies and you have a minor interest in Hollywood, holy shit, this book, Confessions of a Puppet Master, is worth reading because it's, number one, it's a super easy read. It goes by real quick. If you're not into reading, they got an audiobook. And then just his stories are so bonkers. But yeah, okay, here's like hang on, let me finish my thought. My thought is he's like, even the people who don't get it and don't like my movies and review them poorly, he uses those bad reviews. And he's not angry about it. So here's what I'd say. Even on like the marketing materials for his memoir, there's a quote from John Carpenter, which basically says like, who, by the way, was who he came up with. He was John Carpenter's friend. I mean, that's the other amazing thing reading the book is like the name dropping that happens in it is truly impressive. I fucked Demi Moore, no problem. You want to know what her pussy looks like? I wish he talked about that, but so like John Carpenter had a quote that basically said like, yeah, Charles Band, like no matter how hard he fails, he's still around. Like it's like, that saying about after a nuclear explosion, cockroaches will still be around. Like Charles Band is the equivalent of those cockroaches. So, and he used that in the marketing material. Right. So my answer to this is my score for this is a 1. This is a terrible movie. But it's not trying to be a 10. It's not trying to be a 2. Right. It's not trying to be anything other than that moment at the video store with your friends on a Saturday night where you're giggling and you're high or you're drunk and you just want to let the insanity of the world sweep over you in some sort of visualized format. It's not art, but it's a vibe. And for that, it's a 10. there could be like an argument made for the peak hubris of consumerism and capitalism was late 90s, early 2000s. Gingerdead Man. Was Gingerdead Man. Of like, we're doing so great that the Gingerdead Man exists and we partake of it. Watch this. Without question. Yeah, this is like, watch this. I'm going to make a movie starring Gary Busey for 3 minutes about a gingerbread man who kills people with a knife. It's going to be mostly filler, not killing, and I'm going to make an assload of money on this. And then your friends are like, shut up. No, you won't. And then you do it. Why? Because you can. Because capitalism is great. Well, yeah. I'm not sure how much money this one made, but this is probably one of the more successful Full Moon features. Like it's a recognizable name. Yeah, yeah. And it is on lists. Like if you look at Christmas movie lists, it'll show up. Anyways, so we'll talk more about it later in the spoiler section. But first, we need to talk about nightchannels.com. If you are looking for the perfect gift, well, actually, it's too late for Christmas. But if you just took back all your shitty gifts and got refunds and you're looking for what to buy on Boxing Day, Canada's most celebrated holiday. Right. Go to nightchannels.com and look at their
wide assortment of niche horror, occult, metal, and alternative t-shirts and sweatshirts. They've got designs that you're not going to find anywhere else. And again, this is the one thing that we ask you. You know, with that wad of cash that you're holding from that return to Macy's of the velvet slippers that you're never going to use in the first place, take that wad, go over to nightchannels.com and just browse. Because I guarantee you, if you browse, you're going to find something that you want. And once you fill up your cart, use code HMT at checkout to get 13% off your entire order. And they're already priced very reasonably. It's not like, for how niche these designs are, like, you would think you'd only find them on Etsy for like $35, you know?
No, they're crazy. I think I've bought 4. They're great shirts, and I really enjoy them. And
they just came out with the Belladonna. Is that, I can't remember what
Bella Canvas.
Bella Canvas. They're just super, like, they're already super soft and feel lived in.
Yeah.
That honestly, like, that's the way to go now. Like, I don't think I'll order the other version of it.
Yeah, check them out. They have supported the show for over a year now. We appreciate them.
Mm-hmm. If you're listening to these commercials, you should know that you don't necessarily have to. If you go to patreon.com and sign up for our at least the $6.66 tier, you'll get all of our episodes with the ad section taken out, the mid-roll section taken out, and early access for whenever we finish editing it, which is sometimes months in advance, sometimes minutes in my case. Go to our shop on horrormovietalk.com shop if you want to buy some logo tees. Also check out our resident artist, Dustin Goebel. He's a professional artist who fucks hard. Yeah. He also takes commissions for artwork from HMT fans. We got an email from a fan that found us on YouTube that commissioned a Halloween 6 artwork from Dustin that he was really pleased with. So find him on Instagram at dgoebel00. That's at DGOEBEL00. Make your artistic dreams come true. If you want to call and leave us a voicemail, our number is 682-253-4468. So thanks for hanging out. Now we're going to get into our interview with Charles Band. And so I want to give a little intro. Charles is responsible for the production companies that made some legitly legendary exploitation horror films. And his story is really really fascinating because
it's impressive.
It goes from like the heights to the lows, and he goes from living in Italy and having a father that works in the business that worked with like John Huston and these other legendary directors as the secondary unit director, to starting his own production company, which formed into this giant studio in Italy,
Empire,
that is responsible for such movies as Reanimator, Ghoulies, Trancers.
Yeah.
Was the origin of many careers like Helen Hunt, Demi Moore, Viggo Mortensen. Like lots of names got started out with these movies. Bill Maher, and goes from that to getting that entire production company taken away to reforming into another company, Full Moon Productions, which started out in partnership with Paramount and then went off to be truly independent. And
it's a very interesting story.
And he'd also owned a castle. Like his personal life is really interesting too. Just like seeing someone super successful, like living the high life, to like going into the depths. Really, really compelling story. So check it out on bookshelves now, or Charles suggested especially the audiobook. Find Confessions of a Puppet Master. And we sat down and had a really interesting talk with him. about, some of the contents of the book and his experience in the fringes of Hollywood. And I think you guys will like it. So without further ado, here is Charles Band. So on the phone today, we've got Charles Band, a legendary name in the horror movie exploitation film genre. He came out with a new book called Confessions of a Puppet Master, a Hollywood memoir of ghouls, guts, and gonzo filmmaking. And we're really excited to talk to you. It was a really fun read. I couldn't put it down. And I appreciated the fact that you gave us what we wanted, which was who you slept with and who the most difficult actor to work with was.
That's it. That's it.
I mean, that's what the people want.
That's right. Well, okay.
So you had a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and I was wondering how you felt while you were writing this to relive those moments in your career in Hollywood and international wood.
Right. Well, first, before I got on the show, I didn't know if this was Zoom and it was live, so I didn't have to wear a shirt or anything.
No, you don't have to wear pants. You can take them off right now.
No, I'll wait. But okay, good to know. No, it was a trip going back and remembering. I mean, I couldn't have done it by myself. I had this wonderful biographer named Adam Felber, who sort of was coupled with me by our literary agent. And, I needed someone like that because I can tell my stories, but I'm not really a writer. And Adam's a wonderful writer, and we really saw eye to eye. He was the head writer at the Bill Maher Show for 11 years, and, we just shared a lot in common. So we got into a routine where every Saturday for almost a half a year, last year during COVID, we would spend a few hours in the morning. And he'd kind of just take me back and get me to tell stories, including things that I try to forget. I'm good at forgetting the bad stuff because there were a lot of bad times as well. I mean, I hung on. I had ups and downs like everyone, but mine were possibly a little more extreme. So it was kind of fun in that way. I was glad when it was all sort of brought up to date. And then, of course, the irony is we finished it towards the end of 2020, and that's when HarperCollins, the publisher, wanted the material because it takes them a while to vet it and to do whatever hocus pocus they do. And then so many amazing things happened this year. Bought this crazy haunted mansion in Cleveland. We're shooting movies there. We're shooting movies here. It's just a lot of cool stuff happened. But I guess, life carries on, and you got to kind of close the chapter at some point. So other than the regret that I wish I could tell more stories about what happened this year, it was good. It worked out. And I'm glad I did it because I would have never have done it otherwise. I didn't really seek it out. But the sort of, kind of break because of COVID gave me the time.
Yeah, I mean, even the parts that you did talk about, recent stuff, just the COVID movie that you shot in like 3 days, just right before.
Well, no, dude, we shot it in 1 day.
1 day.
Don't give me 3 times. 1 day. It's called Corona Zombies.
Right. Yeah, and that's available right now on Full Moon.
Oh, they're all. We've done 3 of those. We did. Because there's this crazy chick there, character named Barbie. Let me turn this thing down. And Barbie then teams up with Kendra, and then we did 2 other shows that were sort of topical during the summer of 2020. We did Barbie and Kendra Save the Tiger King, because Tiger King had just come out. It was a formula that I invented that allowed us to make a movie really quickly, have some fun with it, and then most of the hard work went into it in post-production, where all the voice actors and the writers were doing it by remote because we were all locked at home because of this terrible COVID thing. So even though we only shot those shows 1 day each, the writing took a while because we went back and, much like What's Up, Tiger Lily, we found all this crazy old fun footage, put new dialogue and new music into it. And as these ditzy girls are watching TV and discovering these low-rent, either Nature Channel or Horror Channel, these movies played. So it was kind of a cool thing to do while we were all, trapped in our homes. So,
yeah. And
then this book happened, which was great. And here we are in 2021, and it's almost over. And it just felt like it was just beginning. And now we're looking at Omicron. I mean, it's like, I made these movies back in the 90s with really inexpensive, cheap Godzilla type movies. One was called Zarkor. The other one was called Cross. I keep kidding my friends, say, I'm going to make a movie called Zarkor versus Omnicron. It sounds like a fucking big Godzilla, Jack Kirby monster movie.
You just got done describing how you basically shot a movie in a single day, and that's a great example of what I'm just in awe of reading this book, Confessions of a Puppet Master. Is your hustle is insane, and the value of being able to hustle just really, really blows me away, and the skill that you have in that, and you describe over and over. But the one question I have that's kind of paramount is, why horror? Like, why did you focus so solely on horror for so long?
Well, I grew up on a movie set. I learned the technique. My dad was a producer director, and I loved all that. But I just personally liked sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. I liked all of them. I loved Harryhausen movies, Jason and the Argonauts, Seven Voyages of Sinbad. I love good horror movies. And as I started making my first few movies, I realized that with my very limited budget, I'm better off generally making a horror movie because the canvas is pretty small. It's one thing making a movie in a few locations with character driven with a bunch of 5 or 6 actors. Science fiction calls for bigger canvas, spaceships, monsters. So part of it was also a budgetary thing. But then I fell in the groove of making what I like to think are kind of different, out of the box, creepy horror movies, but not slasher films. Never made a slasher movie, made plenty of puppet and doll movies, and just movies that luckily have stood the test of time. Even movies I made 30, 40 years ago, whether they were Tourist Trap or Ghoulies or From Beyond or Dolls, and more recently, even a movie like Head of the Family, which a lot of people haven't seen. Head of the Family is one of my favorites because it's just so freaking out there.
Is that the one with the tongue?
That's story? The one with the tongue, and I highly recommend people go find or see on our streaming site Head of the Family, because it's, if nothing else, you won't be able to say, oh God, I've seen a whole bunch of movies like that one.
It seems like your specialty, like especially during the full moon years, was being able to put out a movie a month. Like, could you walk me through what the timeline looks like for that, to be able to make a horror movie in 1 month?
Well, we're going to be making more this coming year. We have 18 movies scheduled. So you have to look at it like layers of cake, because it's not like you make a movie in 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. Even at our breakneck speed, our shows are anywhere from 6 to 10 days shooting. I mean, the movies I made last year, I call them we had a good name for them. The Corona exploitation movies. That was it. Even movies like those are unique. So those were shot in a day because it's maybe 10 minutes of screen time, and then intercut with the crazy shows on television that are repurposed material with funny dialogue. That's sort of a different thing. But if you're making a movie that's 70, 80, 90 minutes, you need to shoot a certain number of days. But the timeline is usually 4 or 5 months. So you have maybe, and we move quickly. So maybe there's a few weeks to write the script, and you do pre-production for 30 days. Then you shoot, let's say, for 6 or 8 days. Then it takes a few months in post to complete the film. But you do that, and then you layer the movies, month by month. So at any given time, right now I have 3 movies in post-production being finished. We just finished shooting a movie, last week. We're shooting another one next week. And, there's a couple of movies in pre-production. Yeah. So you just put it on a board, and let's say the whole gestation period is 5 months. So it's 5 months, 5 months. So at any given time, you have a number of films that are in different stages of production.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like it's such an interesting world, and such a, it seems like an important historical part of the industry to have these low budget exploitation films, because it gives a lot of people a start in the industry. Yeah. And there's a lot of name dropping that's really impressive in this book. I'm not to undercut it, but you've started the careers of a lot of big names. Like you mentioned, Demi Moore, Helen Hunt, Mariska Hargitay,
Bill Maher.
And, well, I guess you didn't start Gary Busey, but you had a great story about Gary Busey.
Good story. But people like, Viggo Mortensen. I've made a lot of movies over a lot of years. And, part of it is just, okay, you work with some thousands of people. Unless you got the worst taste in the world, you got to, hit on a few. But no, there's been quite a few. And a lot of people that I've worked with who are behind the camera, who are also went on to become really well-known art directors, directors of photography, special effects guys. So, you mentioned working
happens. With Stan Winston, and that, John Carpenter was a collaborator at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Like it's really impressive. True. I wonder, what's your opinion of like the state of exploitation now? Because it feels like movie, like filmmaking, just keeps getting more and more consolidated in more and more ways, to where it feels like it's just Disney that owns everything. And, there's unlimited distribution, but also unlimited like streaming services and product out there. Like, how is there still, what are the new difficulties when it comes to like running a studio like Full Moon?
Well, we're lucky. I've been around a long time, so kind of know where the bodies are buried. Because I've made so many movies and I kept most of those rights, we were able to launch these streaming services back in the beginning. We were just months after Netflix launched now, 8-9 years ago. So we kind of got grandfathered in, and, Full Moon is pretty eclectic. Even though most of the movies I made are on our site, we also license hundreds of other movies, Euro cult movies and Blue Underground movies. And, there's a lot more on our streaming site than just the Full Moon movies that I've made over the years. So I'm grateful for that, because we used to be, back in the 90s, one of the top independent suppliers to Blockbuster in Hollywood. When video was happening, direct-to-video, video rental, we were like there.
Yeah.
And we were making a movie a month in the early 90s, distributed by Paramount. That was really hard to do. That was back in 35 millimeter. It was a different world. So unfortunately today, ironically, the price of entry is like nothing. Anybody can get equipment for a couple grand and go out, and, they can also use their friends in their backyard. It depends on what level of sort of a movie or a micro budget movie you want to make. But unfortunately, a lot of those are just not commercial. They're fun to say, hey, look, I made a movie and I put it in a box and I made a cover and it looks like a DVD. But there's a glut of that kind of product, and that doesn't really get into where it needs to. And the big problem is streaming sites. They pay nickels. It's not like the good old days where a home video, you made a reasonably priced movie. It was an exploitation movie. You could, ship 10, 20, 30,000, DVDs and make a buck. Today, that does not exist in the streaming world. Mm-hmm. So either you align yourself with a big streaming site, which is hard because they're all like mini studios. You can't just go into Netflix and say, hey, dudes, I made a movie for $5,000. Otherwise, you just can't get out there. There's no, it's just really hard to break through. I'm sorry about this stupid phone. Anyway.
I had a question for you. You're basically the king of exploitation, and I was wondering, who is your contemporary that just blows you away, that you're just happy to share a room with any time?
No one's ever asked that. It's actually a very astute question. Okay, so how do I say this without sounding big-headed? On my level, no one. Corman for sure, but Corman now is sort of chilled out. He's in his 90s. He's amazing. We're friends. I love Roger. That's kind of it. I'm amazed at what Blumhouse is doing, but that's, multi-million-dollar films. That's a mini major, But as far as low-budget exploitation, where you make movies like the movies I've made literally since the 70s and take them out into distribution yourself, because we, for better or for worse, we work in our own bubble. We, from concept, I say to people, we're kind of from concept to collection. So, you dream it up, you make it, you put it out on your own streaming site, release it on Blu-ray and DVD later, collect a few bucks and move on. That's kind of a rarefied world that I mean, the only other company I can think of that's been around that long, but they don't make a lot of movies, is Troma. Right. I mean, I love those guys over there. They've been around as long as I have, but they usually acquire, buy movies. I've made my movies. 90% of them are movies I've either produced or directed, or both. So as far as a filmmaker who makes pictures in this budget range that has his or her own video company, and there's no one else right now.
Yeah. Actually,
and I mean that, I don't mean that like, hey, I'm the only guy. It's just, it's a tough business. There were many years where colleagues, people like me, or at least other distributors, there were a lot of people back in the home video days, a lot of companies that either made movies or acquired movies and released them on home video. And they are literally, with a couple of exceptions, all gone.
Yeah. Because
the home video model really worked, unless you were a crazy person, you could make a movie and get it out there in the video stores and Blockbuster, sometimes in Hollywood Video, and you would ship units and collect money and make another movie. When that died, and it didn't like just get like, oh, there's less stores now. It died.
Yeah.
As in, the business disappeared from the face of the earth. 90% of the people who were out there in that business disappeared. They became, they were lucky real estate agents, but whatever, they just moved on.
No, that's why I asked, is because I really couldn't think of anybody else. And just a follow up to that, not necessarily that he's your contemporary, but I was curious about how you felt about, or if you're familiar, I mean, everybody's familiar with The Human Centipede, but how do you feel about The Human Centipede, and more generally, Tom Six, the director of those? Have you?
I'm not, I have to admit, I know this sounds weird, I don't watch a lot of, what I'm doing is, and I'm grateful, I'm not complaining, is so 24/7 that it's rare that I find the time to watch anything. So, I mean, I've seen a little bit of Human Centipede because I went to a couple of film festivals and I caught a moment, and I know what it's about. And, I like horror movies or sci-fi fantasy thrillers that are real clever, where you can't guess what the fuck's going on. I mean, One of my favorite movies is Sixth Sense. I mean, luckily no one told me what I didn't know anything. I went in there hearing it was a good movie and I fucking loved it. Get Out, more recently, another fantastic movie that kind of messes with your brain. I mean, you can go back to The Exorcist. So I like those kind of movies. I was never into torture horror movies. I don't need to see a lot of blood and guts. It doesn't, and, a lot of the movies that are made today, the haunted house and people crawling on the ceiling, and, it's fun, but you grow numb to that stuff. When it gets under your skin is when I can get, I'm not scared easily. People ask me, what are you frightened of? I go, nothing. I'm not. I'm afraid of lack of funds. Okay, that's what
This tracks with the read of the book, man. I like I said, I have just endless amounts of respect for the hustle. I'm in awe reading this book of.
It's a hustle.
It's a masterclass in how you make it. Is just work.
Right.
Go to work, man.
Yeah. No, it is. It is. This is the worst thing to say to two dudes who are interviewing me, but so today I was up super early dealing with my usual stuff. Then I had to be on set because I shot I'm shooting or finishing a compilation show. I did these back in the 80s. I mean, I did them with Sybil Danning, with Elvira. It's kind of an excuse to put footage together that is inexpensive or free, and find a host who is a credible host with a credible name. So, for instance, back in the day, I made one called The Best of Sex and Violence. I made one called Film Gore. And the most successful one was called Famous TNA. Okay. And there are people today who don't understand what TNA means. It's tits and ass for your listeners who are just not in the loop.
Oh, they're in
so Famous TNA was a show I did back in the early home video days. And it was, I hired Sybil Danning, who back then was huge. She was like one of the hottest chicks around. This is 41 years ago. She was my host for Famous TNA. What Famous TNA was her talking about famous women who at that time and earlier, all the way back to the 60s, whether it was Brigitte Bardot or Jane Fonda, they all started their career by showing their boobs. So it was clips from those movies, some historical blah, blah, blah. But it did incredibly well on video. And it is still to this date our most successful, I say one of the top 10 most successful movies I've ever made, cost no money at all. Here it is 48 years later. If you go to our channel on Amazon, where the algorithms find what people are viewing the most and throw them into the most popular category, you will always see in the top 10 famous TNA. So a month ago, because I'm making these movies that are a little more expensive, I'm thinking, I got to make a cheap movie. I got to make another famous TNA. I thought, well, duh, I can make famous TNA 2. Why not? It's been 40 years. All the hot chicks back then are now either grandmas or gone. So then I thought, well, who can be the host? Can't be Sybil, even though she's around. She's a sweet girl, woman, I should say. So I thought, okay, who do I know? Who did I help? Whose career? And it dawned on me, one of the girls who worked for me years ago is pretty well known on TV because she's on Joe Bob Briggs' Drive-In program, which is on Shudder. Her name is Diana Prince. So I called Diana. I go, hey, Diana, you want to be the new Sybil Dannings? I'm going to make famous TNA 2, and we'll put together 200 clips of all the cool girls in the last few years, many of which worked for me, scream queens, half naked, running around. That's how they started their careers, including people like Sherilyn Fenn and, more famous actors. So Diana said, great, we wrote it. So at 6 a.m., I'm on set today shooting all her material in a really pretty set, famous TNA. We had the same logo. She's sitting in the same chair that Sybil sat in 41 years ago. So I shot all that material, and now the editors and a fellow named Brooks Davis, who's very talented, who wrote her material, now they got the task for the next 3-4 weeks of putting together an 80, 90-minute feature hosted by Diana Prince called Famous TNA 2 that by late January will be up on all our streaming sites. So this is a long-winded answer to a lot of work and being an entrepreneur. So I'm driving. It's like, I don't know, it's about 3:30 LA time. I'm driving home thinking, I'm going to get home, got to take a shower. I got to have a nice vodka martini. And I thought, oh, fuck, I got this Zoom thing. I got this fucking Zoom thing with these guys. Fuck.
These assholes.
And I thought it was, I had to put a shirt on. I didn't even know it was audio. It'd be easier if it was audio. But it would have been very easy to call the gal and say, hey, listen, I'm wiped out. Let's just put it off another time. And, I thought, no, I can't do that. That's like sacrilegious. It's against the universe of being an entrepreneur. So here I am.
Yeah.
Well, I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. It's
I mean, when I got the email, like, I was kind of over the moon because I didn't tell you, but Full Moon was a significant part of my teenagedom. Like, me and my group of friends would always go to Hollywood Video, and we would rent whatever blockbuster new release was coming out, and then we would also rent some
guaranteed,
Full Moon production or, exploitation movie. Yeah. And so we could, watch the one that like we were really curious about, and then watch one and, laugh and make fun of it. Sometimes have our own little Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah.
And
of course.
Full Moon were some of the most memorable. I still like when someone asks me, like, what's the worst movie you've ever seen? And I go, I don't know if you guys made the horrible Dr. Bones, but that was one. And then the other one was Totem, which...
Well, those are not any of the good ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, back in the 90s, we had a second label that did really well called Surrender Cinema. Did you ever see any of those?
No, but you mentioned them in the book.
Movies like Pygmalion, The Exotic Time Machine, The Erotic House of Wax. I mean, young boys are into those movies too. I always try to put some pretty girl in these movies and have the boobies fly a little bit. I mean, that's part of what these movies are.
Yeah, it holds a dear place in my heart, and I was really excited to talk to you about it. Maybe one final question, and then we'll let you go. We appreciate your time so much. But since we're going to be doing this on the Gingerdead Man episode, we try to do Hollywood-themed movies during December.
Christmas theme.
Christmas theme, yeah. I was wondering if you could share the one story in the book about Gary Busey, or your experience working with Gary Busey on Gingerdead Man.
Oh, God. There are a lot of Gary Busey stories. I mean, how non-PG can we get here?
Oh, you can go as wild as you want.
We're R-rated.
Yeah.
Okay, well...
I mean, technically,
so
we're
Gary.
X-rated.
We have a bit on our show that's called horror. Or
well, I mean, I don't want to offend anyone because we are in a different era.
Us.
But
we've
Gary, if you've seen the Gingerdead Man, you know that Gary Busey has a very short part. He breaks into a diner. He's the bad guy. He kills someone, and then he gets caught and he gets sent to the electric chair. And the young hot chick in the bakery sends him to, his death. Testifies. This is all backstory. It turns out that Gary Busey's character's mom was kind of a witchy chick, and she takes the ashes, brings them back to the bakery, puts them in the gingerbread batter, and out comes a really pissed off cookie with the voice of Gary Busey. That's the setup, right?
Right.
You can't not love the movie already.
Right.
I knew I had to work, and we were lucky to get Gary. It's a very inspired idea, and I had to only work with him a day because then it was just voiceover. I needed one day. He comes in the diner, shoots the place up, some dialogue, and that day was. I'll never forget it because the stories are funny, but we didn't know where the fuck he was. We were warned he's a total womanizer. I said, every girl out there, just stay your distance. I can't do this in audio, but he would have his little hands grasping for imaginary boobies. He was like a completely crazy wild man. And there's so many stories. There are like 20 stories, things that happened in those 8 hours I worked with Gary. Literally. And I mean, they're in the book and some of them are in the book, but I don't know. I don't know what I can tell you right now that isn't a lengthy story, but it was great working with him. He's a great guy. And, the difference is I've worked with other actors who are pretty out there. The only other actor, and I'm just going to throw this out just by comparison, who was past tense, as crazy as Gary is, an actor named Klaus Kinski, if you know who Klaus Kinski is.
There's some
fantastic actor. I worked with him on a movie called Crawl Space I made back in the 80s. And people do compare the two because they're really intense. The difference is Gary Busey was a lot of bravado and crazy dialogue, but he was ultimately harmless. I guess if you were a chick and he was like grabbing your boobs, that's not harmless. But, there was a line. You didn't think he was going to go nuts. Whereas Klaus Kinski, in my experience with Klaus making this movie, there was a point where we were doing this movie in Italy, and I had a frantic assistant come in and say, you've got to go quickly to the bar, which was more like a coffee house, by the set we were shooting, because Klaus has got the director, a guy named David Schmoller, who also directed my first Puppet Master movie and other movies. Anyway, he's got David Schmoller by the neck. He's got a knife and he's going to kill him. So normally I go, we're in Italy, everyone's screaming, nobody comes to blows. But I knew Gary was out there. So I thought, okay, I better get out, see what's going on, make peace. And I get there, there's like 15 people surrounding David, who was by the lapel, and Klaus Kinski with a knife. And he was just red, like his eyes are bulging even when he's not upset. Klaus Kinski has huge, crazy eyeballs. And he's like about to fucking knife this guy. And I said, what's happening? As I was approaching, he said, he was really unhappy with a shot that David was going to get. He thought it should be closer. This is like insanity. And this could have happened. Things had spun the wrong way, but I'm very calm. And I said, David, Klaus, you probably don't want to do this because if this happens, how are we going to finish our movie? How we, in other words, subtext, if you kill the director, it's a bummer. The police are going to come. Yeah. And somehow he calmed down and they eventually went back and the show must go on. So Gary, on the other hand, I didn't really tell you a Gary Busey story. That'll be for our next episode, but there's some of them are in the book and they're completely crazy.
Yeah.
Charles Band, Confessions of a Puppet Master is the book. Thank you so much. You're responsible for so many terrifying childhood trips to the video store. Yeah. And we just appreciate everything you've done for the genre. And I guess the last question I have is Bush or no Bush?
Well, it's really the question is the question is where's the bush?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Where'd it go?
Yeah, where'd
it go? That's Gary's. That's a teaser. That's what he wanted to know from 3 young girls he cornered in a parking lot. He was screaming, "Where is the bush?"
I love it, Charles. Thank you so much for stopping by.
You guys should know that obviously the book's been out just a few weeks. And I've got lots and lots of funny posts and emails and letters. And I'm finding that a lot of people are really digging the audio book. Some people just have gotten out of the habit of reading, so some people just don't read. But, the audio book, you can do a lot of other stuff, exercise, take a walk. And I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, but apparently it's even funnier than the book. It was a great, I did the first chapter, but I couldn't spend the time in the studio. They wanted 40 hours to read the whole damn thing. But the person that HarperCollins hired was terrific. And apparently the audio thing is a lot of fun. So if you're not into reading a book, you can get the audio thing.
Trust us, it's worth it. And can you tell us and our listeners where to find, where they can sign up for Full Moon streaming service?
Yeah, it's fullmoonfeatures.com. Easy enough. And, we always have a crazy offer right now. If you sign up for a year, which is $59.95, it's $6 and change a month. But if you sign up for a year, it's $59.95. But what we're doing, because we're crazy people, is you sign up for a year and we'll send you a free 12 Blu-ray box set of all the Puppet Master movies. And that's $120 value.
Wow.
Damn. Well, you heard.
So, you get a year of streaming, incredible movies, and we're making a bunch. And you get a free, the Blu-ray box set alone is twice the value of the subscription. So, yeah, or you go to, if you're on Amazon and you're a Prime member, you can sign up for it on Amazon. The difference is you don't get the free box set. We're not Amazon. We can't give it away.
Right. Well, thank you so much.
We'll
get to that vodka martini, and
it's coming right up. But thank you and good luck, you guys. All right.
Thank
you much. You have a
all
good
right.
day.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so thanks to Charles again. Go check out that book. Yeah, I think the audiobook would probably be a good choice. It feels like it'd be a pretty entertaining listen. It was an entertaining read. So that book again is Confessions of a Puppet Master. It's a memoir of Charles Band, and he had a special part in my adolescence. Like,
I think he had a huge part in a lot of people's adolescence. Like if you grew up in the 80s or the 90s, he was right there with you in the video store.
And he's still trucking along. So check out fullmoonfeatures.com. You can, or get the channel on Amazon. Thanks so much to Charles for coming out. So now let's rip into this movie that he made.
Yeah.
Let's get into our spoiler section.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
Ew, David.
So yeah, I don't have a lot of points to talk about this, but but yeah, let's talk about Gary Busey for a minute. Gary Busey's screen time, like actually him on film, is ended by the 3-minute and 50-second mark.
This is. I don't think that I'm talking out of class here. When Gary Busey, when you stop seeing him in scene, the movie, the worthwhile parts of this movie are done.
I disagree.
Okay. That's fair.
There is a Gingerdead Man.
That's fair. There is a Gingerdead Man, and I don't care. Don't care. To be fair, the nostalgia that I feel is literally me going to specifically one of my friends. He knows who he is. Going, do we have to? And then him be like, Mom, yeah. And then just him just being like, did you hear what he said? Like me asleep on the bed and him being like poking me as he's like, did you hear him? And be like, huh? What? Huh? He said, have you had ladyfingers, bitch? I was like, and then him like, ruffling my hair in an annoying way. So it's like, yeah, it's nostalgic in a certain way.
One of the experts, I think, like the meta information around this movie, if you read the Confessions of a Puppet Master, again, like it's pretty great because he gives you what you want. Mainly, who did you fuck? Mm-hmm. Demi Moore.
Yeah.
And who was the worst actors that you worked with? And answer Gary Busey.
Gary Busey. Yeah.
So
I worked with him for less than 12 hours, and it was the worst. and look what I do.
Yeah. So he talks about Gary Busey in this book, and he basically says that, like, I mean, think about it. You got one scene. A scene. Gary Busey doesn't have to move more than 2 feet.
No.
In this whole thing. He's just got to be there for some shots that they set up, and then they just got to go get him from his trailer. You'd think it'd be simple. But in that 12-hour period, Charles Band said that they lost him like at least more than a dozen times.
My favorite part is that Gary had a rider in his contract that said, you need to have a massive basket of candy.
Right.
Like stereotypical, like Halloween garbage candy. You know, Three Musketeers,
Snickers,
Milky Way, Snickers,
Twix.
all this baloney. And you need... And at some point they lost him. They were like, "Where'd Gary go?" And and Charles actually went into his trailer
because he was the big star, so they don't want to disturb the big star,
right?
But he's not answering the door.
Trailer. He opens up the trailer door, and the basket of candy is completely demolished.
Yeah,
like we're talking hundreds of thousands of calories of sugar, just totally gone.
Wrappers everywhere. And Gary is
out
nowhere
to
be seen.
Right, out there somewhere among the hills of Hollywood, Gary Busey is roaming, all hopped up on sugar.
Stand up.
Okay, then what the...
Stand up!
Right!
Stand up!
He's attacking people with knives somewhere.
I mean...
Just like the post-brain trauma Gary Busey is one of the most interesting and also frightening characters to have out in the wild.
If you
high on sugar.
If you haven't seen I'm with Busey, a 2003-2 show that's just a very early reality TV show. It's public domain now. And you can watch it all over the place. You can watch it on YouTube and all that stuff. And it's fabulous. It's just Gary being very scary, a very scary person.
Unhinged.
Yeah.
Like normal Gary Busey at this point is an unhinged mess. And putting that on camera as a psychotic killer is like, that's just going to work.
Oh, it works so well in this movie. Like there's these moments where it's
the moments within 3 minutes and 50 seconds.
There's the moments with Gary in this movie where where the whole movie transcends even the fourth wall, and it becomes like a look into a person's soul, where he's like crazily holding up this diner, and he's staring into the camera, directly into the camera, a little too long. And you're like,
is he going to shoot me?
There's a part of you that's worried about you. And it just grabs you. It grabs every bit of your attention and goes, this man's crazy. He's crazy.
So anyways, let's finish the story from the book. So they can't find him after this, like, there's some, like, Gary Busey Sasquatch out there that's high on sugar that, like, is a danger to all, like, men and women and children.
Yeah.
And they're looking for him everywhere, and they hear unmistakable Gary Busey voice.
Sounds.
And the way that I envisioned it, tell me if I'm wrong, but, like, they found him in, like, a narrow crack.
Yeah, it sounded like he squoze into a niche.
Yeah. Like, his face is mushed up between the trailer and, like, a rock face.
Right.
And he's, like, accosting some female cast members or female, like, crew.
He's like got him cornered.
He's like, where did the push go?
Where did it go? And then Charles realizes, he's talking to them about the disappearance of female pubic hair between the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's asking these women, like, so what's your situation?
Yeah, what do you got going on down there? And so he's like, hey, Gary, we have to actually, young lady, we need you on set right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they get Gary and, like, tell him, like, we're ready for you and get him off. And then almost immediately after they do that shoot, he goes back to the trailer, and someone comes up to Charles and is like, my daughter went into his trailer and she like can't escape.
And then this like code blue.
And he goes into the trailer and like he describes Gary Busey just like basically crazily talking this poor girl's ear off, and like the girl like kind of like help.
Yeah, this is what I imagine.
And then like. he makes an excuse for why she's needed on set, and then announces to everyone like, don't go into his trailer.
Period. Don't go around it.
No women go near Gary Busey's trailer.
Right.
And so you get the distinct feeling that he was a nightmare and just like a complete unhinged mess.
The only thing we exploit in an exploitational movie is the audience.
Right. But I mean, in his memoir, he talks about like early on in the career when he was the bigger studio and he was getting pressure from like distributors to get like names in the movies. Like you got to get, that's how it used to work. You get like, I'm not going to say washed up actors, but actors that have not been in the public spotlight for a while.
It's people,
they're skilled.
Known names that you can get on the cheap.
Yeah. But they're names. And, Charles Band says that like, well, eventually he gets to a point where he just uses no names. And it's a lot easier. You don't have to worry about spending the money for like actual good actors. And it's like, I mean, look at this. Gary Busey worked. There's a reason to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Even in, what was that movie that we watched with Tom Sizemore in it? What was that weird movie? Or wait, I don't think we reviewed that. That was the one that never mind. I'm losing my train of thought. The lady that starred in The Grudge, the remake. We interviewed. Do you remember that?
Tara Westwood.
Tara Westwood was in this other film with Tom Sizemore. And he was like an unhinged guy. It was like Hell House or something like that.
Yeah, give me a minute. Wow, Tom Sizemore has like 30 films in production.
Yeah.
I'm not joking.
It's one of those things where you get an actor like this that's like, even if they're troublesome, they bring a professionalism and a quality of acting onto your shitty movie that really transcends the value of everything else,
Yeah.
It really elevates it. So, I mean, it's very obvious in this case.
Dude, Tom Sizemore is a massive exploitational actor.
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea.
I mean, how is he going to feed his habit? So, okay. So let's talk about his bakery. I love how the nemesis girl comes in to release a rat to try to get them like closed down by the health inspectors, and the lead actress is very concerned about it. She's like, "Oh no, you're trying to get us shut down." So Sarah in the movie is like, "You're trying to get us shut down by releasing this rat. You're evil." Whereas minutes before, she witnessed a friend of hers bleeding profusely into the dough and did nothing to stop it from being baked.
I'm in awe of your professionalism. Your ability to pick at this movie with any amount of sense, like with any critical eye.
Well, I mean, that's the fun part of these movies, is it?
This is why Bryce is here. Because he's better than you at this. He is.
No, it's like this.
No, this is a compliment. Anybody else couldn't do it. Their attention span, your ability to perceive and then pick apart. You have reviewer inside you. It's a core of you. Some sort of critical monster within you.
Doesn't this, I mean, for me, it's table stakes. It's like, the whole point of movies and being able to get away with like the magic of movies is that you have to maintain like the suspension of disbelief, and it's this balance, like, because everyone knows that there's no such thing as monsters, but if you create a world that has enough recognizable rules and like situations, you can insert like the little things into it. Like I always use the example of Jaws, of it feels so real and they're so respectful of the shark and what's happening in the world that by the end you're so into it that you don't notice how ridiculous it is that they just blew up a giant shark in the water. Because it's like, instead of going, well, that's dumb. Like if you saw that in this movie, you'd be like, okay, that was dumb. In Jaws, you're like, yay! So the things that pull me out, that's like, well, that doesn't, it's not just like, it doesn't make sense. It's so distracting because, like, people that know how reality works would never let that slide.
Okay, but I'm going to again pay you a compliment. Bryce is a much better reviewer. People say, lots of people go, and there's merit to this. There is. I don't deny that there is merit to this claim. Oh, anybody can just review something or be critical and pick things apart. Yes, that's true. But you cannot do it with the eye that Bryce can. You don't possess that within you.
I don't know. Maybe I'm not appreciating what I have, but I feel like this is pretty easy stuff to spot. Like,
and that's why you're brilliant.
Like so there's a couple moments in this. There's one bleeding into the flour and just doing nothing about it. Not being like, hey, why did you hold your hand after you cut it into the batter? Like, what the fuck?
Ow, my
Okay,
hand.
we got to get the scoop out and scoop this out. No attempt. It's like, oh, are you okay? Well, we better make this batter into a giant gingerbread man.
Gingerdead Man.
The other one is like they find the friend on the floor that's like covered in whipped cream, like what is that, Friday Night Lights? What's that movie?
Yeah, Friday
with
Night
James
Lights.
Vanderbeek.
Yeah,
is that it? Yeah, with the whipped cream tits.
Yeah,
and with the cherries on the nipples, of course. And they find her just laying prone on the floor, and Sarah is like, "Oh, she's in shock."
Yeah,
I know, because I'm studying to be a nurse at community college at night. I just want to help people. And then proceeds to not help at all. Like, not call police, not call, like, the EMT. They're like, oh, I know what that is. She's in shock and in need of medical attention. Anyways, moving on. And then the other one is, like, they're talking about this... this bakery as like, oh, our bakery's failing and not doing as good. Maybe it's not doing great because
you're bleeding into the batter.
You're bleeding into the batter, but also your bakery is based off of, we're just going to make one giant gingerbread man and put it into a room-sized oven. That's just what we're baking now, is one gingerbread cookie. We're going to sell it for $180.
See,
that's how you make money as a bakery.
I knew you would continue to impress me. I have to tell you, Bryce, I was so checked out while watching this movie. I mean, this all makes perfect sense. Yes, all of this, but the movie was so boring and dumb and nothing but that's what it counts on, is me just being like, is like having half my attention while I'm sparking up a bong, like while I'm, picking pimples off of my knee or something like that, like that's what. And so me, as watching this, I was like, oh yeah, it's a whole room, it's an oven, and then moving on. Like I was just like, all right, whatever.
And they're baking a cookie.
I accept all your premises, all of them, because to nitpick this movie is absurd.
But I mean, I think that's what I'm pointing out, is that this stuff doesn't take production value.
This is how seriously you take your job.
More forethought than just what's normal. Like, what? Even if I'm not a baker, I don't know how to bakery business works.
But if it were normal, this wouldn't be the tour de force that is.
No, you would make it work in the normal atmosphere. So, like, if I was there, I'd be like, okay, we're making gingerbread men. You're making 50 trays with gingerbread men. Somehow, Mommy Witch makes it in, sprinkles a little ashes and puts a little Eye of Newt in one of the gingerbread cookies, unbeknownst, and then you shove this rolling rack into the giant
That
oven.
would work better.
Yeah, but that takes no effort. If you're writing the script, like, even just writing what Charles Band said was the premise of it, even if you're just trying to do that, it would be better.
But reading through this book has given me a unique perspective, which is, if you're a writer for one of these movies, chances are very high that you got an 11:30 p.m. call from Charles Band that said, "I need a script in 7 hours." And then you were like, "Okay, no." And he was like, "I'll pay you $10,000." And then 7 hours, remember? And then you go, "Okay." And then I
highly doubt $10,000.
Whatever, like whatever it is.
Right.
And then you sit down and write a script like this in 7 hours. And then a lot of it is probably ignored. A lot of it is seat of your pants, like Charles just being like, no.
Well, that's the interesting thing, is that his description of what the plot of the movie is, he directed it. And he should know that that's not what the movie shows at all.
Right.
Like, the fact that he's saying, like, oh, his mom, which is kind of witchy, comes in and
none of that
sprinkles.
happened. None of Charles's description of the movie is the actual setup for this movie.
Yeah. I was the director of it.
I was waiting for it.
Right.
And I had his description in my mind while I was watching Gingerdead Man. So in my mind it already made sense, because Charles's description made sense.
Which is fascinating. I wonder what his description of ghoulies would be in that case.
I can't,
because that's the amazing thing about these movies, is they're inexplicable. You're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like, you get the gist. Like, the gist is the poster.
Right.
Like, we got to make the poster happen. And to make it make sense or, like, consistent is not an important thing.
By the way, if you want to listen to our review of Ghoulies, you can do so by subscribing to the $25 tier on our Patreon. We have a bunch of Patreon-only reviews that are available over there, so check it out.
Yeah. So, where was my train of thought? So this movie has all these inexplicable moments, and it takes no effort. And that's the other thing I had in my mind, is like, oh, well, it kind of makes sense, because they're pumping out a movie a month at this production company.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and in my mind, and you hear in the interview, I was asking, like, how do you do that? How do you, like, go from, like, soup to nuts in a month?
Right.
And the answer is, it's not in a month. It's in, like, 5 months. So it's actually, like, a reasonable time frame, like any other movie.
Right.
Like, this script was written months before they shot. And somehow, even with all that time, no one read it a second time. Like, I feel like it went straight from
no, there's a lot of "that's not my job"
from the Word document to the print house and into the hands of the actors, and no one looked at it twice.
No, well, it's not that no one looked at it twice. Everyone, it's just the stakes are low.
Right.
There's no stakes. It's just like, no, what's going to happen is we're going to pair this with a badass cardboard cutout that we're going to send to every Blockbuster in the country, and we're going to sit up right next to Evil Dead 2, and that's where it's going to be put, because of EFG. And so
there's this like really impressive, like, what's it called? Barnum, what P.T. Barnum thing, where it's
presentation.
Where, Charles describes in the memoir that, like, you start out with a poster, title, and a tagline,
right? And
you just take that around, and it looks ridiculous, like, but it looks cool, and it gives you such a ridiculous story that you would be like, well, I gotta see that,
yeah.
And then you shop it around and get funds for it, and then you shoot it. And then also, like, the marketing of it to, at the time, like, video stores. That's the whole other thing, is that, like, you can get it packaged with these cool swag, and you realize, like, how much, like, it's borderline fraud. There's this great moment in the memoir where he's talking about, so get this, if you're a video store owner and you got this marketing material of, okay, it'll be like Travolta, Estevez, Swayze, Stallone in a movie together for the first time ever. And we're talking like late 80s, like the time where these are like the apex of Sylvester Stallone, Emilio Estevez, Patrick Swayze, and John Travolta. Well, maybe not John Travolta's career, but recognizable A-list stars that any big budget Hollywood studio would like kill for. Right. And he's like, this is the marketing materials, these names in the film for the first time ever. And then you find out it's like Travolta's brother and George Estevez, the uncle of Emilio Estevez.
Somebody who's just named Stallone, but it is their first time up here.
No, it's Stallone's mother. They're all related to these people. Right. And it's not a lie. It is their first movie together. Yeah. And it's like it's borderline fraud, but the fun of it is like if you have two brain cells to rub together, if you look at what it actually is, going past that like initial shock of like, holy shit, this is amazing, I got to learn more, and you will find out like it's not the people you thought.
Yeah.
Then it's delightful.
Right.
It's like being tricked.
Yeah.
And that was the other quote is Charles Band said, people don't mind being deceived as long as they're also entertained.
Right.
And that's, this P.T. Barnum aspect of these movies, which is, we're fooling you into paying the price to see these movies.
But are we? With
the expectation that you're actually going to see what we're telling you you're going to see, which is a movie.
Right.
Like, that's not an actual movie. This is a fraud. It's the same thing as like, oh, you're going to see the, insect boy. And you step into the tent and it's just like an insect that's male,
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's still a boy.
Well, it's still a boy.
Let's see. A couple other things that you see. See, this is where it gives you appreciation for just table stakes movies, which is, do you remember the scene where the two girls fight?
Yeah, vaguely.
And how awkward that looks?
Yes.
It's like, you realize like, oh, that's why stunt people are there. Because it makes it, they know how to at least make it close to believable that there's a fight happening, as opposed to like,
hey,
don't want to actually swing or touch you in any way.
Right.
Or like throw you off balance. So you're all just kind of standing up and like jostling.
Right.
And there's no danger or threat at all.
Terrible. Truly abominable.
I want to say again, like, I really liked Amos in this movie. That Ryan Locke had some great delivery of lines. He has probably one of the best lines, like tongue-in-cheek lines, which is after they see the Gingerdead Man for the first time, they're like, what was that? And Amos is like, well, it's fake. And his line is like, well, you saw that thing. It had to be fake. Because it looks ridiculous.
Right. Just a little wink. A little wink at the audience.
So the Gingerdead Man, like, puppet. It's great.
It's something.
It's great. When you see it, like, the foam latex, like,
yes, it's
where its mouth opens and its entire, like, face, like,
morphs.
The entire body of it morphs because it's
latex and it's struggling.
There's no like musculature or like a skeletal structure behind it. It's literally just someone's hand in a foam latex.
Yeah, moving a little slit of a mouth.
Yeah. And then Gary Busey's voice coming through it and being like,
but was it Gary Busey's voice the whole time? Or I felt like it was like occasionally Gary Busey's voice with.
Well, that was the other thing. Like, whenever the Gingerdead Man talked, it was of noticeably worse quality audio.
Right.
Like, it felt like it was like, if I was talking and then it'd be like slightly quieter. So if I like did let me see, for example, if I was talking and you're supposed to think that I'm still talking and me and David are still talking, then you hear in between it,
Yeah.
And then you just keep on going like, that was us that said that.
Right.
We're at the same place.
It was kind of like Frankie McDonald.
It sounds like a spaceship is coming. Oh my god, the aliens are here! Oh my god, there's more aliens!
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it. There's something like just super, when you experience like pure schlock.
Pure schlock. Unadulterated, unfiltered, hook it to my veins schlock.
That is the good stuff. And there's not enough of it. But when it is on screen, it was genuinely entertaining because it was laughable and it was fun.
That was the most impressive thing about this movie to me, was the amount of nothing dialogue and intrigue, like Z-level intrigue that was going on between these characters, that I was like, what the fuck? Why isn't there a Gingerdead Man stabbing these people to death right now? Like,
what would you say you do here?
Yeah, it was so, there was so much just bottom of the barrel filler that I was like, oh, this really is a scam.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got your money in 2021.
I bought it. I didn't even rent it. I just bought it.
Oh my.
Because it was like $6. It was either like $3 or $6. And I was like, well.
Okay, guys, I'm going to do a tornado siren once again.
For me, on the off chance if I ever want to pull an audio quote from this movie in the future, it's worth an extra $3 for me.
Hey, I mean, it's just a tax write-off at this point.
And then my last nitpicky thing, and this is like the most nitpicky, and this is true of even big-budget Hollywood films, is at the end, the Gingerdead Man gets hold of a revolver and proceeds to shoot about 1 million bullets at everyone.
Out of that 6-shooter.
Yeah. Which is a common thing. Anytime a gun is in a Hollywood movie, like, no one has any comprehension of how many bullets are in a thing.
Well, I'm glad you picked that up, too. That was actually one of my nitpicky things.
The exception was Resident Evil Raccoon City. Or Welcome to Raccoon City, because
they paid attention to that. Yeah, I counted that too.
Yeah, there were like 6 shots.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Done. I was like, and that was one of the moments in Raccoon City where I was like, oh, this is a good movie. Like, It's not bad.
Anyways, so the movie ends again. There's not that much going on that you can summarize everything as like a Gingerdead Man is created and he's a killer, and then how it ends is the same guy that bled into the batter is like a bootleg wrestler, like professional wrestler, and his name is the Butcher Baker. What is it?
I don't know. Yeah, the Butcher Baker.
Butcher Baker, and he shows up just in the nick of time, and he bites off the head of the Gingerdead Man. And then there's 20 minutes left. And you're like, God damn it. That should be the end of the movie. And no, they have to like pad it more with him being controlled by the soul of P.T. Knickerbocker or whatever his name is. Millard Findelmeyer is the name of the killer.
Fakey McFakerson.
Stabby McPhilmeyer. So that's how it ends, and then the movie's done. Yes. And there's no resolution of like, oh, the bakery is saved, or like, oh, it's just they're dead.
Let us never speak of it again.
The end. So, who would like this? I think we already talked about who would like this. This is a pretty specific situation where you should know what you're getting into, and you should like putting yourself into these situations.
Yes, no, that's accurate. All right, can I take a moment to intro my bit that it's an on the fly bit?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, so this is just some things that my brother and I have kept a running list of. My dad says some insane things. And they're loosely connected to reality. They're just within his reality. And they're so crazy that we just decided to write them down. So credit mostly to Garrett, my brother, who keeps a running list of these things that is shared with me. But it does remind me a lot of Gary Busey. So in loving tribute to Gary Busey, here are things my dad says. And feel free to, take these and use these in your real life. The dog was laying there, all crimped out.
I think, did you do this?
I did, yeah. And he's saying the dog was laying there, all crimped out, referring to a super relaxed or asleep dog. He says, go and burn some water, meaning go heat some water up.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't as ambidextrous as normal. When describing his dying mother who was playing a cribbage game with him, her motor functions were shutting down. She wasn't as ambidextrous as normal. How is Grandma, Dad? She wasn't as ambidextrous as normal.
Mm-hmm. She could only write with her right hand now.
He's one of those Harish talking guys, talking about a person of Indian descent from India. Harish talking guys. It's good coffee, he says. I always think it's going to be, he's at a gas station getting some coffee. It's good coffee. I always think it's going to be laced with gas at the gas store.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack in that one.
I always think they're going to lace the coffee at the gas station with gas.
Gas store.
At the gas store. Ted, referring to his brother, is in hiccup gravy. He's talking about Ted living on his property instead of renting a spot at an RV park. So Ted, his brother, is in hiccup gravy. Someone who's just happy to be alive. Hiccup gravy. Wow, you look concerned.
That has to be a saying. That can't be just out of the blue.
It's all out of the blue.
There must be some basis for that.
No, this is Gary Busey.
Like you could say gravy train.
My brain is never as fast as my mind is. He says this in seriousness.
What do you want me to do?
Stand up.
Okay, then what the...
Stand up!
All right!
All right! Stand up! Stand up and face me!
Okay.
Put your knife up.
Okay. Now what do you
Use your knife to defend yourself. Come on!
It's not far away. We're at that black coffee place. Black Angus coffee. You got to have hands the size of Tinkerbell, meaning he needs some small hands to fix something.
That's almost clear.
Right.
He gets the name wrong. It should be Tinkerbell, but you get what he's saying. Like you need a little pixie hand.
My mom's name is Kathy. He calls her Kath. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he, Kath, can you buy me a weasel? He's referring to a painting easel. But instead of saying an easel, he says, can you buy me a weasel?
Uh-huh.
How big of a menu is it? He's talking about a venue. How big of a venue is it? So this is all stuff that...
What do you want me to do?
Stand up.
Stand up. What do you want me to do? Put this knife in your hands. Now you're going to fight me with a knife. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. Huh. I think
and then he has the audacity when he fights with you to be like, you're insane. And you're like, whoa, buddy. I have a long list here that proves that I am the same one.
Yeah. My mom, there was just a Facebook memory that was posted from like 8 years ago. I think the context was my mom was talking to Aaron about what she was going to get my dad for Christmas. And the quote was, maybe I'll get him one of those Tim Banana shirts. And like
Tommy Bahama.
Yeah, Aaron was just befuddled, and I said, translation, Tommy Bahama.
Tim Banana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you just start speaking parent eventually.
Bryce, can you get me a weasel? Can you go buy me a weasel? I always think it's going to be laced with gas at the gas store.
And they get more and more frequent as they get older. Like my mom, we were just talking about James Bond movies, and she was like trying to keep track of which of the Daniel Craig ones she hasn't seen. And I was like, okay, so there's Casino Royale, there's Quantum of Solace, there's Skyfall, and then Spectre, and then the new one. And she's like, what's Spectre about? I was like, oh, well, it starts in Mexico City, and then like goes blah, 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 blah. And then later she calls me and she's like, in Skyfall, I'm watching Skyfall, and I remember, and she's like talking about how it starts in Mexico City. I'm like, no, that's not, you're not watching Skyfall, you're watching Spectre. And she's like, I know what I'm watching. I'm watching Skyfall. And I'm like, Mom, what does the DVD cover say? Spectre. She was wanting to watch Skyfall.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. She called me and she's like, I thought you said he fell off a bridge in this one. But it starts out in Mexico City. It's like, yeah, that's not the right one.
Listen, lady.
Just when it gets to the point where you can't read.
If you like this conversation, subscribe to Patreon, because the afterpods are this.
Yeah, this will continue on our afterpod for Gingerdead Man. All right, thanks everyone for listening. Go to our website at horrormovietalk.com. If you got a wad of cash burning a hole in your pocket,
even if you don't, we'll take your money.
Yeah. We got a shop. You can get a logo tee, or if you're going to buy stuff on Amazon, click through the button in our banner. Check out Confessions of a Puppet Master. Really genuinely interesting. Thanks to Charles Band for coming on our show. He really didn't need to do it, but I'm glad he did, because
he almost didn't.
He was really, really happy to talk with him, and I remember getting that email, and I was like, full moon. It's going to come full circle for Bryce Hanson.
Yeah.
Thanks to all the listeners. Thanks to our Patreon, our patrons. We have some new patrons? We should probably pull up.
No, I have the list right here. Don't you worry. So thank you to new patrons: George T, Jesse K, Chris L, Stephen M, and Colette S. You guys really tickle my dickle.
And on the nick of time, Amanda S.
Oh, and Amanda S. Yes, just now. Thank you, Amanda.
So we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Looking for a podcast full of burps and gas, perverted cast, skinny and fat? Look no further. Horror Movie Talk is accidentally funny, begs to donate money, fake sponsors for dummies, and so much more. New episodes every hump day. They'll pickle your dickle for foreplay. Patreon members have it your way. Vote for a movie every month for the review. Choppa choppa, don't just stare at it, eat it like a taco. Put your tongue through the phone, hoodie, Picasso. Look at them hot kids, swear not a pedo. Got me too'd with Cosby eating jello. Pudding Pops done gave Bryce flatulence. Drain addict Dave doesn't give a shit. 1 through 10, is it horrible or excellent? Oil me up, daddy, is dinner rum. Kiss Bryce Hanson. Look at them hot kids, Chris Henson. Masturbate with a crucifix, exorcist. Face huggers, chest bursters, alien. Linda Blair peed on Sigourney Weaver. I know it's true, cause it came from social media. Patrick Bateman can't understand you. Stab you to death for rotten apple reviews. Opinionated podcaster with a doctorate. Spookology, doctor of philosophy. Bad gastritis, need colostomy. Turn Patreons into human centipedes. David Doobie Day, scare him, no expert. And Goble fucks hard, professional sexpert. Afterpods, taglines, and porno flicks. American Psycho, them guys pretty sick. Choppa choppa, don't just stare at it, eat it like a taco. Put your tongue through the phone, hoodie, Picasso. Look at them hot kids, swear not a pedo. Got me too'd with Cosby eating jello. Pudding Pops done gave Bryce flatulence. Drain addict Dave doesn't give a shit. 1 through 10, is it horrible or excellent? Oil me up, daddy, is dinner rum. Nothing good happens in the woods. Always get more than you bargain for. Got a pickle to dickle, machines tickle bitties. Killer on the phone, Corona, COVID, curse, Lorona, Green River Killer, because reasons, hallway of poop monster kids screaming, ain't your ordinary dingleberry itinerary, 30 days shutter and jump scares, ain't fucking scary, time for the spoilers with jokes and tropes, use their white socks to catch their loads, to show them one titty, pretty, paganism you should worship, they Teflon dicks, Pacific Northwest, let them see one breast, shifty ass stay spooky, poor man's digress. Bugsy, HMT, horror movie talk.